Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Here with Jason. I want to introduce what we're going to be doing here on a kind of bi-weekly basis. Today, we're going to learn more about Jason, his background, of course, kind of ongoing events. But going forward, we want to talk about, of course, press releases, going to answer any questions people have. We want it to be interactive. Please drop any comments below and we'll make sure it gets in a future video. But first things first, Jason, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. It's a little weird. I've never done an interview with another Jason, so this will be interesting. But look, I'm fantastic. But let's dive into it. Usually like to kick off early background. Wherever you want to start from. Usually people start right after school, but feel free to pick and choose, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Where I'll start out, which is most relevant, is how I got into the industry. I started in this industry in 2006. Prior to that, I ran two separate businesses outside of the industry that I founded and ran, and they were very successful. But I had the opportunity to join a company called Gold Resource Corporation in 2006, in large part because my father and my uncle were involved at that time. They were in the industry their whole lives, their whole careers. They've been retired for about a decade or more. But I joined Gold Resource again back in 2006, back when it was a private company, and helped take it public with a self-underwritten IPO. And at the time, we had a Oaxaca, Mexico mining unit. So it was a Mexico mining unit. We were just an explorer, and we identified the potential to discover deposits, and we did. We were fortunate enough to discover several deposits, and we moved the first one forward into production. So I've been involved in all phases of the mining industry, from early exploration to discovery, delineation, engineering, capital raising, construction, commissioning, and all the way to production. And so we reached production in our operations in Mexico. And the first month of commercial production, we paid a dividend. And we paid consecutive monthly dividends for over a decade to show the commitment to our shareholders, because the company was founded to pay dividends. So we had a lot of success with Gold Resource. We were obviously around through both a bull and a very brutal bear market. We remained profitable through the whole thing. So we had over a decade of profitability. We produced over $1 billion in revenue. We had a very tight capital structure, and we had a great margin. And so what we did is take that margin, leverage against our tight capital structure, and we paid substantial dividends. And as much as at one point, I think it was 72 cents a share.
Oh.
So what we saw happen with Gold Resource is we IPO'd at $1 per share. And during the bull market, we hit a high of over $30 a share. And at that time, I think you guys will find it interesting that we fielded calls from shareholders who had never touched a mining company in their life. And they would call up and say, "Hey, what do you guys do? I love your dividend." Well, the light bulb goes off and says, "Wait a minute, we tapped into a pool of capital bigger than the gold space itself." And that pool of capital chases dividends and yields. So while we were at $30, we thought we were off to the races onto 100 per share. But little did we know a brutal bear market was going to tear down the whole space, and it did. So we survived that bear market, and along the way, we built our Nevada mining unit. And for various reasons we can go into if you'd like, we spun off Nevada, and I've gone with Nevada. Mexico didn't need me anymore. Obviously, after a decade of production and profitability, it was up and running. And I'm focusing my attention on Fortitude Gold now. And we aim to do a similar thing. I'm not saying we can get to $30 a share, but what I do believe is we can tap into that pool of capital that transcends being just a gold equity, and you become a yield valuation company.
So lots to unpack. So of course, like the kind of fork in the road, and you go in one way, but before that, I've got to ask. So you teased me with doing a little bit before gold. You know, you said two very successful businesses. So before you did $1 billion in revenue, tell me what these other two businesses were, if you don't mind, even high
Sure.
level.
Right out of college, it was one was in construction and one was in the equine world. And I ran those, one for maybe 7 years, another for 10 years. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I've been involved with creating companies and having success for a very long time. And then obviously had the opportunity. I grew up in this industry, around the industry, with my father and my uncle being in this industry, and I learned everything I know from them.
So yeah, I love it. Hey, following the family footsteps. You probably got a lot of free advice growing up, which is fantastic. And you know, bringing a bunch of here's business experience, mixing it with mining, and what an incredible resume so far. So now tell me, so fork in the road. Give me a little bit more between, you know, what made you say, hey, let's go with this, let's spin it off. Give me how that comes up and why you wanted to go with it, and of course, still the CEO. So
Sure. No,
give me the story.
yeah, there's a lot there. To boil it down to some highlights here, Gold Resource was created to be a strong dividend payer, and we did that. And as that mining unit grew, the projects demanded far more capital every year going back into the projects for growth. And that is just normal course in mining when you've been around long enough. And so big CapEx spends every year were going back in to the project, and needed to, which would make it harder and harder to pay a substantial dividend. We could continue to pay a dividend, but a substantial one is the driver, and where you transcend being that gold equity and you tap into a much larger pool of capital. So when we created the Nevada mining unit, there was obviously in the back of all our heads on the board going, wow, this could, you know, someday be a spin out. But we'd talk about it and then just drop it, and talk about it and drop it for several years, until it reached a critical mass where it actually made sense to do it. We had reached a crossroads where we had to kind of decide as a company, do we abandon the substantial dividend, where probably half of our shareholders were in the stock for the dividend? Because again, we paid consecutive monthly dividends for over a decade. Do we abandon those shareholders, or do we give shareholders both? We give them the normal course mining industry, putting a lot more capital back into the ground for continued operations and growth. That was the spinoff, or the parent company, if you will, Gold Resource. The spinoff company would become what we targeted to be the dividend vehicle. And so we structured it as such. I did over a year of due diligence, heavy due diligence, asking or answering board questions right and left. It was a very long process, but we all were in agreement. It was unanimous that it made sense to do it. And so we spun off, and I believed I was going to be CEO of both, because what prohibits you from being CEO of both, of as many companies as you want? Well, we were at the, you know, goal line, if you will, right about to finalize this and move forward with the spinoff. And counsel, tax counsel, SEC counsel, everybody was weighing in, and they said, well, you're trying to do a tax-free spinoff. And when you do that, the IRS will look at you as if you did it to avoid taxes. So therefore, you're almost guilty from the start, and you have to prove your innocence. And so if you think you're going to do that in front of the IRS by saying, where one of their big tests is, are the companies independent? And if you think you're going to get in front of the IRS and say, these are independent companies, but you're CEO of both, you're going to fail, and you're going to create this tax situation, which would nullify the spinoff and create a pretty bad tax situation for all shareholders, which we wouldn't have done it if that would have been the case. So at that point, obviously, I had to swallow hard, because I was very proud of, I've been with Gold Resource for 15 years. I had to swallow hard and see, it's not about me. It's about the shareholders, and that operation can almost run itself. It didn't need me. But a lot of the advice we were getting was this: This new company, the market has to truly believe that you are a management team that can move forward and pay a dividend. And so myself and the previous chairman of Gold Resource, his name is Bill Conrad, we both came over to Fortitude Gold. And that sent a signal to the market. This is the same team that delivered over a decade of dividends at this company. Are they going to do it again? Highly probable. So we did the spinoff, and we have not only announced or initiated the dividend, we've increased it twice, and we're already to 48 cents a year, and we pay monthly. So that gives you just one aspect of the spinoff. There were several more. I won't go into all of them, but another one was jurisdiction. When you have an asset in Nevada, which is the premier mining jurisdiction, and you have an asset in a lesser jurisdiction, which would be Mexico, it does detract and limit true value out of the Nevada piece. And so by isolating it, we believed it would warrant that premium, and we think we're getting that. So that's just two of the many, many reasons we did it. Again, it was a unanimous decision to do the spinoff. We're very glad we did. And looking back, like after about 6 months after we did the spinoff, we accounted for all the share ratios, et cetera, in exchange, and then the share price. And we had created over 30% value in a matter of 6 to 8 months. So we did create better shareholder value. And this is back in 2020, right? 2021, which was a tough time for the space. So it did work. Now, since then, you can't look at it that way anymore, because Gold Resource has gone on to do other things and has made an acquisition, et cetera. And you can't compare them as such. But our early analysis, we did actually create greater shareholder value by spinning them off.
Yeah, look, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure we're gonna get a ton of questions. And I want to take this time to, of course, always invite people with questions. I know the financial engineering, which is really what this is, behind the scenes, extremely interesting. Some people would love to get any questions. But I guess here, like my question now. So, going from an operation that you say basically got to the point where it can run itself to now starting earlier as the CEO. Walk me through what the kind of day-to-day, week-to-week looks like as the CEO of Fortitude Gold.
Well, early days, I was incredibly busy because we had set up a situation where I thought we were going to be able to leverage the whole team over at Gold Resource. And we spent a lot of time to create a management services agreement where we were going to share individuals, certain people to help, so that I didn't have to staff up so fast. And for a while there, I was doing everything from website to payroll to, I mean, everything. Now, and in the midst of all that, I was informed early on that the management services agreement was going to go away. And so I went, oh no, I wasn't planning on building a team so fast, but I raced to build a team. And I was fortunate enough that a lot of the individuals wanted to come over to Fortitude. And yeah, so early days, it was incredibly busy. But I also like knowing every part of what's going on. So I know that. Now things have settled because I have a team. And yeah, day to day, right now, where our biggest focus is moving our next mine forward toward production, and that's called Golden Mile. We reached our production goals in 2021. We're set up to have really nice windfall years in the next couple, 2-3 years at our current operation. For reasons, if you want to go into, we can.
Next video.
Yeah, next video. But right now, yeah, our focus is trying to get Golden Mile over the threshold to making a production decision, and that'll be our second mine build. And to be part of this industry that, again, what we're doing is timeless. And so that in and of itself is great, but I think more importantly, I'm having a blast, and yeah, love building mines, and I'm excited to get on to the next one.
I love it. I love what you're doing. No, look, Jason, thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking the time. I know I speak for a ton of other people are going to say thanks so much for doing these. And again, want to invite people with questions, lots of stuff to cover in the coming weeks. Of course, we'll talk about ongoing operations, what's next, pipeline, things coming this year, and all those. But Jason, again, thanks so much for taking the time and looking forward to chatting again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Jason. Have a good day.